What's going on, YouTube, and welcome back to another video. With Trials of Osiris returning this weekend, very excited and wanted to talk to you guys about the changes that Bungie is making, what I'm excited about, and all of that good stuff. Also kind of where Trials used to be, where it came from, and kind of what we're excited about here at the channel, and what you guys are going to see over on the live stream at, well, here. All right, guys, so really starting what Trials of Osiris is and what Trials of the Nine was for a short period in Destiny. Basically, it's Destiny's pinnacle competitive PvP multiplayer. Elimination style 3v3. It's been an incredibly challenging way to prove yourself and prove your skill in the game, in the multiplayer PvP aspect of this game. I think when it came out originally in Destiny 1, it was honestly fantastic. Everyone really had a great time with it. The way that you were able to kind of pit yourself against other similar skilled, highly skilled players to make a run on a flawless card to get to the lighthouse was amazing. With that being said, and I think we can all agree that when Destiny 2 brought Trials of Osiris back, they really botched it, man. Whenever they brought it back, there was just a plethora of issues. We're talking, I mean, cheaters galore, first of all. And we're going to talk about all the things that they've changed to make this new iteration better. And I'm very excited about the stuff that they are doing. But you also ran into situations like it was a flawless or bust goal. Like, that's what you did. You either ran a flawless card or you immediately lost the game and you reset the whole thing. Not to mention that the reward system that they initially had in place was not very good. It did not feel rewarding enough to warrant you putting yourself through that and that kind of grind in a video game, ultimately to get to win number 7, run face first into a cheater, and then lose anyway. So Trials of Osiris is still supposed to be the pinnacle activity, right? It is end game content, something that you grind to get your power level up to a certain point, to get the best rolls on weapons, and then pit your skill against another player's skill within the game to see what happens. And they didn't want to lose that. They didn't want to lose the feeling of a high-risk, high-reward gameplay of a multiplayer experience. And I don't think they are going to if all of this stuff implements itself the way that I see it happening. So on September 10th, when it comes back, what Bungie said in the initial release is basically they focused on 3 things. They focused on making Trials more accessible. They focused on making Trials more engaging with the players. And then they also, and I think almost more importantly, wanted to make Trials feel much more rewarding whether you went flawless or not. So with the accessibility side of things, it shouldn't matter how big your fire team is or how skilled your fire team is, you should still be able to participate at some level because you're still going to get rewarded no matter if you make flawless runs or not. Just the flawless rewards are going to be better. They're going to be more of them. And finally, they are making changes to the engaging aspect of it with labs is coming back, which I'm super excited about, and changes to elimination, I think, to be testing some different things. Ultimately, when you look at it, I mean, Bungie and Destiny, this is a business, right? So the more people that play and more people enjoy the content that is in the game, the more money they're going to make, right? So I think it was a big thing for them to ultimately get more people playing in Trials of Osiris that weekend to make the whole thing better, make people want to come back and play it again. And so they are making some changes not only to that, but they're not going to be running Trials every week. So it will not be running during Iron Banner, and Trials will not be here before the raid world's first week. So in order for them to get more people playing, they wanted to do those things. That way it doesn't split the player base so heavily, which is a larger pool of players to pull from, which makes matchmaking easier for the system and for us. They also are trying to do something about that flawless or bust mentality. Now that I think is going to be difficult to do. I'm excited to see exactly how these rewards play out and how the reputation with Saint 14 plays out in order for them to do this. But I think there will always be some sort of flawless or bust mentality, especially at the pinnacle level of player. And they are reworking the reward system to make it feel like it's a pinnacle event. I feel like this entire time since Trials has been back, that it hasn't felt that way. It hasn't felt like you are earning what a similar event in, say, a PvE game mode would earn you for all the work and the effort that you're putting in to do 7 games without a loss in a very competitive environment. So they're reworking a lot of that stuff too. Okay, so this I think is going to be the hottest topic of these, and that's the access changes. By the way, everything that we're talking about was actually linked to in an article from Bungie that I'll link in the description down below, so feel free to read it more in depth if you want to. But yeah, the access changes I think are going to be the biggest, either pro or con, depending on who you ask. They are simultaneously making it easier and harder to play Trials of Osiris, and here's what I mean by that. They're reducing the requirement for like the Trials access quest. Most of you guys probably don't even have to worry about it because you've done the Crucible stuff and you've actually done the Trials quest forever ago. Not a big deal, but they are reducing the initial requirements to get in. That way, if you just dabble in Crucible, you'll still be able to play in Trials. And I think personally that's a good move, because I didn't really like that whole idea anyway. If you play Crucible, you should be able to play Trials. I didn't understand the blockade, and I'm glad they're taking that part, at least pushing it way down. Number 2 in the accessibility column, and I think it's going to be fantastic for this game and for the content of this game, you can now solo queue into the Trials playlist. So not only can you queue in solo, but you can also queue in just with one other friend. That way you do not have to plan to get a whole fire team together in order to compete. I feel like that opens the door for a lot more players to be playing Trials, because there are weekends that I don't have a full fire team and I cannot play Trials if this was not a feature that was being added this season. Very excited about that. I'm also excited to see the content that's going to come from people solo queuing flawless runs here on YouTube, etc. They're also going to do a freelance Trials mode, much like the freelance competitive mode that they put in the Crucible, in labs, but they haven't really expounded upon that yet, so I'm curious to see how that's going to work. Hopefully that makes it into the game. Basically what that means is if you use the freelance mode, you have to be solo, and everyone else in that queue is solo. So there are no duos, no triple stacks in that mode, or in that playlist. But again, that may go back to them reducing the player base. So I don't know. I'm curious to see what that's going to play out to be, but for now, I think this is a massive W. And number 3. This is the biggest one for me, and I wish more games would not be afraid to do this. You cannot play Trials without the most recent annual expansion. You can't. You cannot load into Trials, a Pinnacle competitive activity, without having the most recent expansion. Listen, I understand that not everyone can afford to do that. I get it. But this is the easiest and most effective way to circumvent the cheaters and all of the hackers. Listen, an account ban, hardware bans, anti-cheats, I understand all of that. But where you are going to finally stop the problem is at the bank account. If you have to get a new account and buy the annual pass again, it will lower your cheaters in-game dramatically. And I think most people will agree with me on this. I don't think everyone does. I've kind of seen some mixed reviews on Twitter. By the way, follow me on Twitter. I'm hilarious. So anyway, that's number 3, and I think it's the biggest one in order for us to have the best experience possible in Trials. You have to own Beyond Light to play this season, and the Witch Queen comes out in February. You'll have to own the Witch Queen to play Trials then, and I think that's a good idea. I really do. Let me know in the comments below what you think about that particular point. I'm a big fan. Okay, so more changes to the actual Trials game mode here, right? I think a lot of these are going to actually be really, really nice, because as you guys know, if you've played Trials, if you're down a couple rounds in Trials, it can sometimes be an absolute disaster and very difficult to claw your way back. What I really respect about Bungie is that they've listened to the player feedback on this, and they're actually actively making changes to make things better for the players. The couple things that I actually complained about initially was stalling rounds in order to build supers and abilities, and then carrying over special and heavy ammo from round to round, because it can just lead to disastrous effects come toward late game. They are actually doing everything they can to fix both of those, and another problem actually that the community was kind of mixed on, but nonetheless they're fixing it, right? So number 1, the rounds are decreasing from 2 minutes down to 1.5 minutes. So from 120 seconds down to 90 seconds. It won't eliminate the stall thing, but it will definitely help it. Gives you a 30 seconds less that you can just sit and build supers. The special and heavy ammo thing was a pretty easy fix. I think that people will actually enjoy it longer, like long term. I don't think this will ever change back. Special and heavy no longer going to be carried over round to round. I think that's a good thing. And finally, one of the things that's kind of split the community, I think, is emotes are now in first person only. There is no more 3-peeking around corners using emotes. And now, just to run a sword so that you can see around the corner is not going to work, because if you do not have sword ammo, it will automatically swap your weapon. No more 3-peeking. I like the idea. In the higher levels of gameplay, in the later wins on the card, that tends to be abused. Candy Cakes, of course, has spoken out loudly about this particular topic, but I'm excited for that change as well. Now, speaking of the rewards and making things feel more rewarding, I think they also did a pretty decent job. One, the Trials tokens aren't going on just like the Vanguard tokens and the Crucible tokens. It's now just a reputation meter, which I think is a good thing. Also keeps it in line with the rest of the game, which just makes sense to me. Also, reputation in Trials is now based on the individual round wins, not the full, like, match wins, right? So you're trying to win 7 matches in a row to go flawless, but there are rounds within that match. And so reputation is based on rounds won, not just matches won, which I think helps that like middle swath of the player base really garner these rewards and maybe do better, feel more rewarding, want to play more, because even though you're not winning matches or win 7 in a row, you still have these reputation rewards and these trials Ingrams that they're implementing to get rewards. Reputation rewards will work much like they do with the Vanguard and the Crucible. Every 3rd rank up, you get a reward. At rank 10 and 16, you'll actually get trials specific weapons, which is a good thing, I think, also. Making sure that everybody, if you just grind the game mode, you'll be able to get rewarded. And that's really what Destiny is all about. So I really like that. However, the flawless runs will still give you flawless trials gear that will rotate on a weekly basis just like it always has, and those still feel the most rewarding, which is again a fantastic change, and I'm really excited to see how this plays out and how the community takes these changes. Okay, this particular change to the passage that we're about to talk about, I'm not sure how I feel yet, so I need your thoughts in the comments down below. But passages will no longer track losses. It is either flawless or it is not. So used to, when you got 3 losses, you'd have to reset your passage anyway and restart. Now you don't have to do that. It will track up to 20 round wins in a row. That way you get the most rewards and those kinds of things. But you can still go flawless on that passage. And now that passage, that Trials passage, is account wide. You don't have to get a new one for every character, which is nice. But I really don't know about them taking away the loss feature. I feel like that all, and I don't know, that may be the old school like participation trophy hating person in me, but I think the 3 losses, if you lose 3 matches, you should have to reset your pass. That's just me. That's just me. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I'm probably going to get roasted for that. That is okay. But that's the changes to the passage. Not a whole lot going on there. You just have to get points and win rounds in order to get the Pinnacle Rewards and those kinds of things. Oh, also all of the passages have been reduced. So like cost-wise has been reduced. They've been reordered because the Mercy passage now really only matters if you're trying to go flawless, and they're trying to de-emphasize the flawless runs a little bit, so they kind of adjusted the in-game economy to compensate for that. All right, so now they're also adding 2 Pinnacle Trials rewards every week for you to go after, to grind for on the weekend. 1, win 7 matches, not in a row, 7 matches throughout the entire weekend. And 2, win 50 rounds over the course of the weekend. Both I think are achievable. Both I think are challenging enough to deserve a Pinnacle reward. I do kind of wish that the 7 may be like 10, win 10 matches instead of 7, but I digress. 3 matches wouldn't make the difference anyway, so I understand. Okay, so stick with me through this because this could get dicey. The 3, 5, 7 bonus reward things, they've done away with them. Here's the deal. They want players to go deeper into their cards, and they don't want them to reset them after every loss, and we've talked about that. So even if you have a loss, if you have a 7-win Trials card, then your card wins after 7 have extra bonus rewards that you can do and a higher drop rate of things like Trials Ingrams, Master Working Materials, things like that. And a higher probability of them dropping high stat Trials armor, which makes sense. You have 7 wins on the card, you should be rewarded for that, even if you do have a loss or 2 in there. And again, I do want to stress that the lighthouse stuff is not changing. If you make it to the lighthouse and you walk upstairs or get transported, I guess, up to the top, you're still going to get a Pinnacle Adept weapon your first time every week that you make it to the lighthouse. And then, of course, all the mods and the cosmetics and stuff are in the chests to reward multiple flawless runs throughout the week. I'm curious to see how that plays out and how people feel about that still, because after your first flawless run, there's really minimal incentive to run a flawless card again. It's almost more rewarding to not bother and just kind of keep going. But I think, again, that was their goal. I think that was their goal ultimately, is to de-emphasize the flawless runs, so that kind of makes sense in the grand scheme. We'll see how that one plays out. So the Trials Ingram that you get from the Reputation Rewards will drop armor, will drop weapons, and you do not have to have them unlocked already for those Ingrams to drop those weapons and armor. I think that's a good change as far as ways to get them, because again, you can just play Trials and you get rewarded for it. It's great. And you can focus those Ingrams with Saint, even adept weapons. If you've unlocked that weapon or piece of armor or whatever already, you can focus your Trials Ingram that you get into those specific things. The deal is, though, and the way that they worded it was kind of funny, if you are planning on focusing into a new adept weapon, apparently it's going to be quite expensive in in-game currency to do those kinds of things. So I'm curious to see how the economy works around that. It'll be fun to watch. So let's talk about matchmaking in Trials. I think this is a big one that a lot of us older players are or have been concerned about. They are taking many more points into consideration when matchmaking your Trials card and your Trials matches. Not only is it going to be, I have 5 wins, you have 5 wins, let's go. There's a lot more points involved, right? So your performance within the match and things like that will be taken into consideration, because the way that they put it, often these flawless or bust level players are being paired with players, frankly, like me, that don't belong together. But it looks like they are taking steps in order to do that. They're going to balance it week to week and see how it goes. But it looks like they are making the matchmaking a lot more forgiving, which is a good thing. New anti-cheat in Trials, baby. Not only are they requiring you to buy the annual expansion, good thing. They actually implemented an anti-cheat that we all had to download. If you played it already, Destiny 2, you've already had to download it. Fantastic. Anti-cheats are good. I'm looking at you, Activision. And the final thing to talk about is Trials Labs. I'm not going to go into big detail here. Basically, what they're going to do, and you guys are familiar with labs, they're going to be testing a lot of things. They're going to be running a lot of different Trials of Osiris labs to test different things within the community. They already have some planned, and I'm not going to go into all those. You can click the link and read them. One is this like capture elimination hybrid thing that they've got working, the freelance mode that we talked about earlier, and just not having an intro quest to play Trials, which I think is a good idea also, because you're going to have to buy the battle pass, or buy the expansion anyway. So yeah, anyway, guys, that's the end of the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe and do all of those things. If you have any more questions about anything, leave them in the comments down below, because I am back. I'm making Destiny 2 content, and I could not be more excited. Guys, thank you so much. I cannot emphasize enough how happy I am to be here and get to do what I do. I love you guys, and hey, I'll see you at the tower, Guardian.